It was a low-intensity blast that shattered a few window panes of vehicles and caused a little bit of damage on the ground, but there were no casualties. And yet the implications are huge. This happened right outside the Israeli embassy in the heart of VVIP Delhi, the most protected place in the country, less than 2 kilometers from where the beating retreat ceremony was underway, with the Prime Minister, President and entire government leadership in attendance. While there were no injuries or damage to the embassy building, the timing of the explosion raises many disturbing unanswered questions.
A blast in the heart of Lutyens, Delhi, the VVIP zone of the national capital. At 5 p.m. on Friday, an explosion outside the Israel embassy on the APJ Abdul Kalam Road shook the city. The explosion was of low intensity and did not cause any injuries. The explosive was planted 150 meters away from the embassy on the footpath.
Today, a little after 5 o'clock, a blast has taken place. A car went through exactly this area. It's all been cordoned off now. We cannot go beyond this barricade. And I'll just ask Prem to zoom in into the background. There is a very clear visual of security personnel, police officials, intelligence officials, and all others from various national investigation agencies who are probably gathered there, speaking to officials of the Israeli embassy. The Delhi police has said that it was a very low intensity blast. They've used the term very low. They've said that there is no damage to life. There have been some vehicles that have got damaged. The window panes have got damaged. But obviously, more than the impact that the blast has made in terms of damage, the investigation obviously will be of a very, very serious nature.
The police say the blast seems to be an attempt to create sensation. The special cell of the Delhi police, an NIA team, fire tenders and the bomb disposal squad were rushed to the location immediately after the blast was reported.
Initial samples have already been collected by the Delhi police bomb squad. Ball bearings were used in this improvised explosive device. It was a locally assembled, very crude improvised explosive device that was kept on the pavement between number 3 and number 5 APJ Abdul Kalam Marg. This is an open road, incidentally. So at that point of time, it was an open road. There is some evidence, there is some information about when that perhaps that piece was kept there. CCTV images from the embassy are being looked at, and the house opposite, on the other side of the road.
What is worrying for the security establishment is the location of the blast. The explosion took place nearly 2 kilometers from Vijay Chowk, where the beating retreat ceremony was on, where President Ram Nath Kovind, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and top ministers of the government were in attendance. For now, Delhi is on a state of high alert. Bureau Report, India Today.
And we've got some more details coming in on this developing story. It began at 5:05 when the blast happened. Sources telling India Today that the blast happened after multiple rounds of reconnaissance, and that those who planted this improvised explosive device knew all of the escape routes. The police have found some broken pieces of a tin can. It is suspected that this low-intensity device was kept inside that can. The police also say it was thrown from a car near a hedge, a flower hedge on the median, on the divider in the road. Some ball bearings have also been found near the container. The nature of the explosive is not known or hasn't been revealed by the agencies just yet, or is not being made public. I want to go across to our reporters on the ground, Gaurav Sawant and Abhishek Balla, with me live from outside the Israeli embassy where the blast took place. We also have with us Vidya, who's outside the Israeli consulate in Mumbai. I will introduce you to our guests in just a moment. But Gaurav, coming to you, take us through the very latest. All of that particular area is currently cordoned off. The agencies are still investigating. What's the latest that you're picking up?
Shiv, just a short while back, the bomb disposal squad left this place. They had sealed all the evidence they had gathered. It was a big team of BDS, National Investigation Agency team also on ground, apart from the team of the Delhi Police Special Cell. They've collected all the samples they wanted to. They've also taken images from CCTV cameras in the area. And now there's a fair idea in the reconstruction of events. As you very rightly pointed out, Shiv, so there was a vehicle which repeatedly went down this road. It's been caught on CCTV cameras apparently several times. They recceed the area. And then just around 5 p.m. they dropped this IED, very crude, hurriedly assembled is what sources in the Delhi police tell India today. This was a crude IED with ball bearings in it, some shrapnel, and it went off, damaging windscreens of cars, 3 cars around and nothing else. Of course, some images have been caught on CCTV cameras, including the escape route that the vehicle took. But because that vehicle hasn't been caught just as yet, we do not know whether it was a stolen vehicle, the getaway vehicle, where is it at this point of time. All of that is being ascertained. Also some other information that the police have been able to gather. We will have a clearer picture. But according to the police, this is some mischievous elements who want to create a sensation, not directly linked to terror just as yet. You know, the Israelis are looking at it as a terror strike.
Okay, the Israelis are looking at it as a terror-related incident. The Delhi police has so far said that this is someone mischievously trying to create some kind of sensation. But there is a top-level contact going on, Abhishek, between the Indian and Israeli governments. You've had the national security advisors speak, you've had the foreign minister speak as well. So this is being taken with utmost seriousness. I mean, that much is clear.
Shiv, this is the second time, you know, in the last 7 to 8 years, the last such incident took place, which concerned the Israeli embassy was 2012. That time it was a big terror conspiracy. As of now, the Indian authorities have not termed it as a terror attack. But obviously, when the investigations are carried out in an incident like this, when an IED is placed outside an embassy, there will be ramifications. The last time around, it had huge international ramifications because the investigations revealed that certain Iranian groups were also part of that conspiracy. This time around, still very early on as far as the investigation is concerned. Delhi police says that it was intended to create sensation. Obviously, that's very, very significant because the beating retreat was going on.
Yes.
And, you know, we are at a state of a heightened alert at this point of the year. Other than that, forensic experts still doing the rounds there. Officials from NIA just entered. Once again, senior officials who were at the spot, gathering whatever information that they can to pass on to their superiors, and then obviously that has to be communicated to Israel as well.
And this has had an effect in other parts of the country as well. For instance, the Israeli consulate in Mumbai is also seeing scaled up security. Vidya is right outside there to give us a quick update on that. Vidya, Israel has the Israel government and the Israeli community has a lot of a lot of centers in Mumbai. The Israeli consulate is one of them. There have been Israeli properties that have been under attack in terror attacks past. You and I both covered them during 26/11. So it's not surprising that the Israeli consulate has also come under security now.
Well, it certainly is, Shiv, as you said, that the fact that, the consulate as well as the Israeli, people in general have also been the target at many earlier instances, which is the reason why Mumbai police immediately, as soon as they got to know about the terror attack or the attack in New Delhi, the entire security around Mumbai, not just in those installations where Israelis are connected with, but across the entire city, across all the police stations, the security was beefed up. There is a heightened security across Mumbai, but especially right now I'm outside in Lower Parel area. I'm outside the Consulate General's office, and this is where the Consulate General's office is located.
Okay.
And the 13th floor of this building that you see, that was totally sanitized in the evening. The dog squad and the bomb squad, both of them were here. The teams completely sanitized this entire building. It was only after that they gave a go-ahead that everyone was allowed back onto the floor. After that, this entire area is on a heightened security, wherein almost every vehicle that is going by is checked in, and every person who walks in needs to show their
this kind of
identity
security at airports, at the Israeli consulate, at different government installations is something that's going to be, I imagine, happening or stand in place for the next few days at least as while this investigation continues. Gaurav, Abhishek and Vidya, thanks very much for joining me with that quick update. I wanted to get it from the ground, so we have the very latest. Introducing you to my guest this evening, Jaydev Ranade is former Additional Secretary with the Research and Analysis Wing, which is India's external intelligence agency. Uday Sahai is a former IPS officer. Manoj Joshi, Distinguished Fellow of the Observer Research Foundation and a well-known writer on strategic affairs. But I'd like to start with Dr. Oshrit Birwadkar, is a research fellow with the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy, a well-known foreign policy analyst, and is an Indian Israeli. Dr. Birwadkar, welcome. Thank you for being with us. We do know that the two governments, the Indian and Israeli governments, are in touch. They're in contact. The national security advisors have been speaking. The two governments have decided to look at this very closely. The Israeli government is looking at this as an act of terror. Can you give us the overall assessment, even in these early hours, of what may have happened and how the Israeli government is looking at it?
Well, as you just said, the Israeli government is concerned and is looking at it as an act of terror. So the Israeli ambassador to India, Ron Malka, just updated that everybody at the embassy is safe, and we saw that both foreign ministers just spoke with each other. So Minister Ashkenazi just said that the Indian minister assured him that the Indian authorities are committed to the security of all Israeli diplomatic staff. And in this note, I would like to mention that today we mark the 29th years of diplomatic relation. So it's the 29th on the 29th. And in our Middle East neighborhood, it is customary to assure that the establishment of relationship between countries is only related to peace and security. So the establishment of a relation between India and Israel reflects a broader picture and has a unique added value. And we both India matters to Israel, and this is important for us to say. And it's still very in this initial stage, so we still need to be updated and keep looking forward to the update of the government. But as far as we understand, this is a terror attack.
Okay, so that's very clear, Oshrit. You're saying that the Israeli government is very clearly looking at this as a terror attack. The point that you mentioned, which I'd like to reiterate as well, Oshrit, today happens to be the 29th anniversary of India-Israel relations. Do you think that that could have something to do with it, or is that just a coincidence?
Well, as far as I am familiar with the terrorist attacks, they like to find a symbolic date.
Yep.
So I think it has some kind of effect.
Okay, so you're saying that, if it was a terrorist attack, whatever it was, or just testing the security in this VVIP area, the date, this happening to be the 29th anniversary of relations between the two countries, wouldn't be a coincidence. Jaydev Ranade, what is your reading of this, sir? I mean, this particular blast, it was low intensity, mercifully no damage apart from a few, glasses of vehicles shattered, but it comes on at a time when security in that particular area, which is already traditionally very high, couldn't be higher. Especially since you had the beating retreat ceremony with the president, the prime minister, very, very close by. What is your reading of this, sir? The Israeli government is seeing it as a terror attack. The Indian government has stopped short of saying terror, but they're not ruling out the possibility.
Shiv, this will be viewed very seriously indeed by our government. They are not going to call it a terror strike right now because they are the ones who are conducting the investigation.
Yeah.
But a few points certainly are worth note. Firstly, as you pointed out, that this has occurred in a high security zone, particularly the Israeli embassy, which itself is a protected area and a high security zone. Secondly, while it has been described as a very low intensity bomb or a low intensity explosive, which was kept on the footpath, the fact is that it was enough to break a few windscreens. And as we all know, windscreens and the windscreens and cars are especially toughened.
Yeah.
Obviously, if someone had been there, we would have seen damage to individuals or loss of life. The third point is that whether the persons who came there would have been aware of the security, heightened security in this area, and for them to either plant it or throw the bomb in that particular place could indicate a probing run for some future operation or something which has just been done to, stretch our forces even more. But let's not forget that this particular route, the Abdul Kalam route, is also a route which is traveled on very frequently by all the VIPs, many of whom would have been headed home after beating the retreat. So I think there are multiple points here, but some leads already seem to have become available.
Yes.
The security cameras will certainly be scrutinized. The fact that they have identified one vehicle is good news in the sense that they would have zeroed in on the vehicle and I think be trying to figure out who the individuals are. So I think it's early yet to point out.
Yes.
I would like to mention just one point in conclusion, that even if this was not a terror strike, even if it was done by, as I think someone mentioned, people out to create mischief, it is still very serious because this is not the kind of mischief that
that's true. That's true. Mr. Sahai, this is a, whether or not this was a terror attack, the breach, and even though this was a low intensity blast, the fact that, whoever did this was able to breach all the different layers of security that exist at this time, makes this very, very serious. The intensity of the blast is dwarfed by the implication of this breach, Mr. Sahai.
Indeed, it is very serious, and without speaking much, the government of India and also the local police, Delhi police, has acted very swiftly. You can see not only the minister-to-minister contact on this, but NSA himself has spoken to his counterpart in Israel.
Yeah.
In Delhi police, at least 4 wings have clearly, swung into action. Already they have picked up a few traces from the scene of crime, and including the evidences that they have found on camera. So I'm sure vehicles are identified. The vehicle which was moving, back and forth also has been identified. So I'm sure they will lead somewhere very soon.
Okay.
And therefore, because the local police tries to underplay always, but they act swiftly, that's important so that, the situation is not blown out of proportion projection-wise.
And also, before I come to Manoj Joshi, the fact is, even though the Indian government hasn't used the word terror just yet, but hasn't ruled out the terror angle, all of India's premier anti-terror agencies are on the ground. You've got the National Investigation Agency, you've got the bomb squads, you've got the NSG as well on the ground there. So they're all part of the forensic investigation to decode what may have actually happened. Manoj Joshi, sir, coming to you, how are you reading all the different angles that we know so far on this? The date, where it happened, the time at which it happened, when the beating retreat ceremony was concerned. What are you seeing this as? And this was outside the Israeli embassy.
Well, I think it's very clearly a case of messaging, meaning the intention was not to kill people or damage property, but to send a message. And I think this message is related to this whole Qasem Soleimani episode. The Iranians have been very angry with Israel, with the United States. So I think this is really a classic case of messaging, and therefore the very low intensity blast. So it's a very simple device, and I wouldn't call it crude, by the way.
Yeah.
Meaning that's a bit of a misnomer. It's a simple device. The idea is to just make a noise, make a sensation, but definitely, in my view, the idea was to send a message. And because if they wanted to make a strike which killed people, they could have chosen other places, meaning places with not such high security zones. Here, you know very well that the whole place, there's a CCTV camera which tracks every car that comes by, and everyone knows that.
Very important
it's not a
point,
big
yeah.
secret. You see? So I think this is the classic case of messaging. This is part of a strategy, in my view, of retaliation for the Qasem Soleimani assassination by the Americans, and the idea is here is to just create a kind of sense of uncertainty, a sense of discomfort. The Israelis, of course, know this very well, and therefore, as far as I'm concerned, this is an act of terrorism.
Okay, very interesting. And the Israelis do know this very well. Oshrit, would you like to weigh in on that? The Iranian angle, the Qasem Soleimani angle. There has, been a great deal of anger as far as Iran is concerned. Manoj Joshi says that his reading of it is that this could be directly linked to the Soleimani issue, what's happening between Israel and Iran on the Soleimani issue, and that this could be an act of messaging rather than anything else.
Well, it definitely could be an option. And if we take a look at what's happening in Washington, we have a new government, and there's this what's going to happen? What's the future of this nuclear deal? I think this is also related to that, because as far as we know, the Israeli government is concerned of Washington policy regarding this. So it definitely has an impact.
Okay, we've got some breaking news coming in. Before I go back to my guests, because there's a constant flow of information coming in from the ground on this late evening investigation. It's just been about 4.5 hours since the blast took place. Senior officials from the national investigation agencies are also examining the blast spot, and all phone calls made near the Israel embassy are being analyzed. This is routine processes of investigation. Agency sources are telling India Today that ball bearings in a can were probably used. Recovered items have been sent for analysis by the post-blast analysis team. Jaydev Ranade, quickly coming to you, because I just want to get you to give our viewers a sense of the process. When something like this happens, where there are so many unanswered questions, of course you're looking at CCTV cameras and you're looking at the devices. How difficult is it, to figure out who did this and how this was done?
Well, obviously one has to look for some clues, some indicators as to who could do it.
Yeah.
Right now, I think who did it and what the possible linkages are is speculation. We still have to try and find out some more details. I think all the intelligence agencies would be looking at it. They'd be going through, trawling through all the data that they have, all the chatter that they've been picking up, and trying to identify whether any of them is linked with this particular incident. As far as India is concerned, whether there is a foreign angle or not, we will certainly look at it very seriously. And even if it is some foreign element carrying out a strike here, either a message or for any other reason, as far as we are concerned, it will be an act of terror on our soil, which certainly will not be tolerated.
Manoj Joshi also says that he sees this as definitely an act of terror. Dr. Joshi, do you believe, though, that this was only just this one limited act of messaging, or could it also be, a trial run to test the defenses in that particular area for something larger, perhaps, or is it just this one message to create all this sensation?
Well, first of all, Shiv, I would like to add that it's not just Soleimani, it's actually Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, where the Israelis are directly involved. The Israeli nuclear scientist.
Yes.
Sorry, the Iranian nuclear scientist who was assassinated. So Mohsen Fakhrizadeh as well as Soleimani, I should have put it in the right context. That's number one. Number two, the point that you made, see, in 2012, if you recollect, when there was an incident at the embassy, when the Israeli defense attache's wife's car, there was a bomb, sticky bomb attached to it. And then in 2012, there was an incident in Bangkok, there was an incident in Delhi, and there was an incident in Tbilisi in Georgia. So I would really watch out now for incidents in other countries. And then we'd get a better idea whether this is indeed signaling or it is not.
So this is the chances are, since this happened outside the Israeli embassy, Mr. Sahai, is that there could be some information sharing going on between the Indian government and the Israeli government to check and to assess precisely what Manoj Joshi is saying about whether similar sorts of messaging attacks are happening in other countries as well.
They could happen.
It's quite logical that vertical and horizontal sharing of information immediately takes place in a case like this. And therefore, not only within the country, but also between countries, sharing have to take place if there is some kind of a pattern. And therefore, they are trying to figure out what exactly is the pattern. And the ground zero, of course, the officers make sure by visiting the scene of crime that the evidences are not lost. And to that extent, they have been very swift. And I think Delhi police, the major wings have swung into action. NIA is already on the job. So it won't take much of time to figure out and connect the dots.
I want to just take those pictures full frame to show our viewers some live images that we're getting to you. Once again, affirming to all our viewers who may be concerned that we aren't filming or showing you anything live that we are not supposed to, because we are aware that this is a live investigation and a forensic site that is being examined by all of these agencies. So at no point are any of the camera frames that India Today will bring you something that has not been cleared on site by the agencies, because they're involved and this is a live security situation and an investigation. I'd like to get one final comment from Jaydev Ranade. Mr. Ranade, as the two countries now collaborate, India and Israel, have much in common in terms of facing terror threats. Our embassies have been under attack as well abroad. How does this information sharing actually work? And would Israel, also have people involved in this investigation on the ground here in India?
Well, here they will be sharing a lot of information with us, and if it is felt that they have some expertise which they can give us here, then they will consult with us, and maybe we could ask their people to come across. But at the moment, I think it will be a lot of, because their expertise will be on intelligence of that area. Ours will be in some other sector. And therefore, it will be a question of pooling intelligence in order to get these people. But since the incident has happened here, I think, we are hoping, I'm sure, for some kind of a breakthrough. And as I said, identification of that car is a good sign. I'm sure we'll pick up more from cameras. And if we can zero in on the individual concerned, that will be a major breakthrough, where I think the Israelis may request also to be a partner for the investigation.
Okay, so all of the embassy staff, of course, the embassy leadership, including the Israeli ambassador to India, has been in touch with the special cell as well as the External Affairs Ministry. So that cooperation is happening. Obviously, the intelligence elements are also in touch with the Indian intelligence elements as far as this investigation is concerned. In fact, we've got some breaking news coming in now. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has now come out to say that he has full confidence in Indian authorities in ensuring the safety of Israelis and Jews in India following this minor blast close to the country's embassy in Delhi. So Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, has made a statement saying that he has full confidence in Indian authorities in ensuring the safety of Israelis and the Israeli community. There's a large Israeli community in India at this time. Okay, I'll get a final word in from Dr. Manoj Joshi in on this. Very close ties between India and Israel, Dr. Joshi, on this. The strategic relationship also goes back quite a long way. We've seen what happened during 26/11 as well. How has that relationship matured as far as the counter-terror or the anti-terror front is concerned, so that when something like this happens, what kind of cooperation do you actually see happening on the ground?
Well, Shiv, the point is that terrorism is different from for the Israelis and what is different from what we confront.
Yes.
Most of our terrorism is Pakistan-oriented. Israel confronts terrorism from some Palestinian elements, some people in Lebanon. So there's a complete difference between the kind of terrorists, what we call terrorism, what they call terrorism, between the two of us. So I don't think there is much of cooperation in that sense.
Okay.
I think the greater cooperation is probably in techniques, technologies, in listening in, because the point is when intelligence agencies get going, they listen to everything.
Yes.
And people pick up something here, some people pick up something there, and they might share, but not always. I mean, let's not get carried away by this.
Right.
And I think I should also say, by way of conclusion, that whatever has happened today, we must also be careful that someone could be false flagging something, you know, in the sense that there is always the possibility that someone wants to send some other kind of a message, some third party. So let's not, get overexcited, which we often get.
No, absolutely. Here on India Today, no overexcitement. That's the reason why we got sober experts to discuss this, so we can get all angles covered. And absolutely, the possibility of a third-party false flag is ever present. So we'll have to see where this goes. It's been only about 4.5 hours since the blast happened. Very early hours yet. It's going to be a long night for the security agencies out there on APJ Abdul Kalam Marg in VVIP Delhi. Thank you very much, Mr. Sahai, Dr. Joshi, Mr. Ranade. Very good to have your voices here, especially since this is a sensitive issue and it's important to keep a sober tone and get as much information out as possible. Very quick break here on News Today. Coming up on the other side, stones pelted